All right, this is your Gaza War Sit Rep Day 200. There are two things I want to do today. One is talk about Hezbollah's major attack on an Israeli, the Golani Brigade Headquarters in Acre, I guess is the old Crusader name for the city. And the other is to break down Abu Obeida's speech today. Abu Obeida, the spokesperson for the Al-Qassam brigades, the military wing of Hamas, he gave a speech. He released a 20-minute speech today. I want to just go through that with you. Those are the two main things. Yesterday, we reported with Nora on the fronts, and there's plenty more where that came from. In the West Bank in Tulkarm, they announced the resistance announced the formation of a new unit when they said we promise our people in the West Bank and Gaza that the response will be strong. They also announced that they had detonated an explosive device on a bulldozer and explosive devices on a number of vehicles. In Nablus, Al-Quds brigade announced the use of an explosive device on an Israeli military vehicle in the new Askar camp. And in Hebron, they announced that they're fighting with Israeli forces. So again, another active day in the West Bank. There's a graphic, a pretty amazing graphic that is probably worth showing, summarizing the sheer number. It's a tally of the number of operations that have taken place since October 7th from different groups in the resistance. So 200 days, a total of approximately 1,998 operations, 1,637 from Lebanon, 243 from Iraq, and then 118 from Yemen. My Arabic just kicked in the very absolute last moment because I don't know the flags I didn't recognize the flag of the Iraqi resistance there. So the sheer number of operations has been tallied up according to these numbers, and then today there was no, as far as I could tell, there were no missiles or anything launched from Iraq or Syria, and that's because it was a really big day for Hezbollah. Today was Hezbollah's day. In addition to plenty of missiles in all the usual places, all over the Lebanon front, there was a major attack from a number of drones against the base, the Golani Brigade's headquarters inside of Israel in the town of Acre. And they also announced a whole bunch of other areas that were hit. But the main thing that they announced was hitting, it's called the Shraga Barracks. And they said that they hit the Shraga Barracks using diversionary and attack drones, targeting the headquarters of the Golani Brigade and the Agos Unit 621 at Shraga Barracks, hitting its targets precisely. And they made a card. They didn't make a video of the hit yet, as far as I know, but they made like one of their target cards where they show the properties of the target that they hit. So a major, another, yesterday, Nora and I talked, and we were talking about how the intelligence capacities of Hezbollah are to be able to hit an Israeli field headquarters where they're setting up in a house before they're fully able to set up. Hezbollah already knows they've set up a field headquarters, and they hit them with a missile. And here they actually were able to penetrate missile defense, Iron Dome, which they had been hitting prior to this, and get through with drones to actually hit headquarters of the Golani Brigade, one of the major Israeli infantry brigades in the Israeli army. So it's definitely deeper into Israeli territory than Hezbollah has been hitting, and it's a devastating target, and it's a headquarters of a military. So it's a military target, but it's not. I don't think it's a target that Israel was expecting to be reachable by Hezbollah. So once again, we're in this situation where Israel is getting hit from an unexpected direction and deeper into Israeli territory than before. And Hezbollah says this is in retaliation for certain bombings inside Lebanon. Israel has been conducting airstrikes in Lebanon and also deeper in Lebanon. So I guess Hezbollah would argue that it's fair game to go deeper into Israel and hit military targets and military headquarters in Israel. But the feeling, again, the psychological warfare of this, to be able to have a headquarters of a very important military unit be struck by drones rather far south of your into your rather deep into your territory. I'll just show you a map here. So just bringing up Google Maps here. So this is the town of Acre. Haifa's a little bit farther south, and Lebanon borders here. So in absolute terms, it's not far, but most of the fighting has been just along the actual border line. And this is some ways back. It's a place where the Israelis would have expected to be able to have a headquarters that was safe. And so now that's come under question as well. So now, with all of that, let me break down Abu Obeida, because I mentioned that there hasn't been demonstrations in Jordan as on the scale, or there hasn't been. I haven't seen reports of demonstrations in Jordan of the same scale as we'd seen a couple weeks ago, but there was one today in response to Abu Obeida's speech. So Abu Obeida's speech, let me just find my notes about it, because it was the speech of 200 days, and there were a lot of things in there, including things that I like, some very interesting stuff that he said about the West Bank. So he starts off talking about how the Israelis are trying to salvage their image, only to receive further shame and disgrace. They're still trapped in the quagmire of Gaza. They failed against our resistance. He says something like, "We defeated them in 60 days. 60 minutes on October 7th, and they've taken 200 days and they haven't defeated us." And he has a whole interesting thing where he talks directly to Netanyahu, and he says, your historian father, he kind of disdains him, and he says, you don't even need your historian father to know that what does he say? Is the whole thing about the crimes that he's committed, and addresses Netanyahu and kind of mocks Netanyahu directly. He addresses the idea that there are only a few brigades left waiting in Rafah, and how they're trying to deceive the world into saying that they've defeated them everywhere, and this is all a big lie. They've only achieved mass killings and destruction and murder. And he says, our strikes against the enemy will continue. Our tactics will be renewed as long as they remain present on any inch of our land. He says, linking the idea that they're linking victory to entering Rafah is just an attempt to create a false sense of triumph. And he notes that all of the atrocities that they've committed, killing women and children, destroying graves, seeking revenge against martyrs' bodies, targeting civilians, bombing aid trucks, assassinating members of international and local humanitarian aid organizations. These are not the marks of a confident army. These are the marks of an army feeling significant defeat and disappointment. He talks about the way that the Israelis are blocking negotiations. He says, we will not relinquish the fundamental rights of our people, foremost among them, withdrawal, lifting the siege, the return of the displaced to their homes, and of course, the prisoner exchange. So the occupation wants to do all of that, wants to get their prisoners back without granting any of that. And that's not going to happen. And the military pressure, he says, will only push us to stand firm and preserve the rights of our people without compromise. And then he talks about how the prisoners issue, he addresses the Israeli public as he has done in the past. He says, we're the ones who are telling the truth. We tell the truth more than your own government. He says, he tells this cautionary tale of one of these prisoners who never came back, an Israeli pilot named Ron Arad, Ronarad. And he said, this may be the most likely scenario to be repeated with the enemy's prisoners in Gaza. The ball is in the court of the occupation public, but time is short and opportunities few to release the prisoners. So again, that warning that they're running out of time. Continuously indiscriminately bombing is going to end up killing more of the prisoners that have already died, and many of them have already died by Israeli bombing. The Israelis have killed many of the Israeli prisoners since October 7th. And then he gives special salutation to Yemen, to Iraq, and to Lebanon. But then he says the foremost front of the resistance is the West Bank front, and we salute every inch of our steadfast free bank. So I think that's really, really, like, I've noticed, and you've probably noticed that in these sit reps, the rising activity and the escalating nature of the fighting in the West Bank. Jenin Tulkarm, these fights with increasingly sophisticated IEDs and light weapons, but sophisticated tactics and ambushes. So these are all signs that the West Bank front is more and more active, and that is, as Abu Obeida notes, a nightmare for Israel, because even though the West Bank, people note, is like enclaved and walled and surrounded, all of those walls have to be defended. All of that surveillance footage has to be viewed by somebody, and all of those areas have to be attacked by people who are willing to risk their lives in ambushes and risk life and limb from ambushes and improvised explosive devices, and probably increasingly rocket-propelled grenades and other kinds of weapons that the resistance will have in the West Bank. And he also, Abu Obeida also noted Jordan, the importance of Jordan. He said, Jordan is us and we are from Jordan. It is one of the most important Arab areas in terms of popular and public engagement, and it occupies the enemy's mind significantly. So, and then finally, he gives his assessment of the Iranian reply. He says, even though they mocked it and said it accomplished nothing, it actually has changed the equation. And then he called for escalation on all fronts of resistance. So a major speech, a major landmark by the spokesperson for the Qassam Brigades, Hamas's armed wing, on day 200. Okay. I guess that is it for the reports from the fronts. I wanted to make sure I did a video both because of the Hezbollah attack on Acre, on that Golani Brigade Headquarters, and of course to break down the speech. There is one other thing I could talk about today. I've been waiting for a day when there wasn't too much other material, which is to talk about my book about Gaza, which I wrote, I guess I actually started writing it in 2014 to imagine what the next war on Gaza would look like, and how a winning war would look, and that was the idea of the book, Siege Breakers, and it was I just wanted to kind of go through like the things that I got wrong and the things I got right about when I was kind of making these predictions of in the book, because the book basically made some predictions about how the war would go. My the cover artist actually did a little animation of the cover of the book, which I can actually share with you. It's like this looping. I think I can share this with you. It's this looping animation. I think I can start it over again. So he made this animation of the cover of the book with the breaking of the barbed wire fence and the birds flying free. So here's what I got right, and here's what I got wrong about in Siege Breakers. Okay, so what I got right was that the outcome was going to be decided on the battlefield. That was definitely that I kind of wrote that book like part of the insight that I came to, that I wanted to share by writing that book, was that this was not going to be decided through like a nonviolent struggle, and so that I got right. I also, in the book, I wanted to write about how it was essentially a Palestinian project. It was not going to be like other people liberating Palestinians for them. It was going to be Palestinians doing it themselves. So that also I got right. The important resistance characters in the book are the armed struggle and the political leaders of Palestine. And then the other so the struggle, there's different groups of characters, but the Palestinian characters in my book are kind of on a struggle to establish unity. That was, I think I got right, that unity among the Palestinians was a key factor in whether they were going to win a war of liberation. Now, I actually kind of projected a political unity. I projected that they would have an election, and then that election would be what spurred pressure for military unity as well. And in fact, in reality, I got that backwards. It turns out that the military unity between the different factions came first in reality, and the election, is something Hamas is calling for after the war. So there's one kind of prediction that I made in the book that hasn't come true yet, but it might, which is that I predicted that some of the collaborators that are currently working for Israel would switch back to the resistance side. And so that prediction, or that part of the story arc in Siege Breakers, was inspired by some of the statements, and we've seen statements like that in this current war as well, where resistance factions are saying, hey, come back to our side, don't work for the occupier. So those are the things that I think I'd say were, broadly speaking, correct. Here were a few things that I absolutely did not see coming. I did not see how long and how hard Israel was going to hold on. So in Siege Breakers, towards the end, there are some innovative tactics and weapons that the resistance shows up with through various means that they get them. And the Israelis see that that's not going to go their way, that things are not going their way, and they sue for peace. So this is what I thought would happen. This is how I thought it would unfold. I did not expect Israel to be able to take so many casualties, hide so many casualties, how much they would be willing to let their economy tank, how much they would be willing to conscript, how much they would be willing to let their government erode, their morale. All of those things, I just thought they would be more rational. So the Siege Breakers is built on this premise that the Israelis are also supremely rational, strategic. The Israeli characters in Siege Breakers are cold-blooded strategists, cold-blooded, ruthless strategists for their own side. And that's how I always understood them to be, based on characters like Ariel Sharon or, leaders like that, right? Moshe Yaalon, any of these kind of bloody-minded Zionist leaders from history. That those were the models that I built the Israeli characters on. I did not have a Netanyahu kind of figure as a character in Siege Breakers. It was all military and intelligence people on the Israeli side, and I did not expect them to hold on like they have held on. I also didn't expect the United States to cling to Israel as strongly as they have. So I actually have some, Siege Breakers is this combination of trying to present Palestinian resistance fighters as action heroes, and also to have your computer hacking, kung fu fighting, super spy types from the US also helping the Palestinians as well. So I had US and Israeli characters, one key Israeli character under deep cover and working for the Palestinians secretly from inside Israel. So I expected, I guess, more division, less unanimity in both the U.S. ruling class and Israel than ended up happening in this war. And the main thing that I didn't see coming was the role of the axis of resistance countries, like whether it's Syria. Lebanon has a minor role in Siege Breakers, mostly in flashbacks, that the characters talk about what Hezbollah was able to accomplish in 2006, because 2006 is this war that they all look back to, all characters on all sides. So the role of Iran, this April 14th attack on Israel, is absolutely not anticipated in Siege Breakers, and neither is Yemen and Ansar Allah. So I wish I had seen that coming, because that would have been a spectacular set of characters and things to write about in Siege Breakers, and maybe we'll do that in a sequel one day. I think if I do write a sequel, it'll be post-conflict. It'll be kind of utopian. It'll be some kind of utopian story of how the society deals with the aftermath of the war and rebuilding in a free Palestine, because I think that's more of the kind of vision that we need right now. What I was trying to do, my political objective in Siege Breakers, was actually something that's now already happened, which was to say that which was to give you an insider, like, affective view and feeling that the Palestinian resistance was heroic, that these were the action heroes of our time. These were the people that are fighting overwhelming odds. These were the people that were, you know, like you watch Marvel superheroes fighting Thanos or whatever it is, and those Marvel heroes have nothing on the Palestinians. That was my, and those villains have nothing on the Israelis. And that was the goal that I was trying to do. And the reason I wanted to do it in fiction is to make you feel that, not just to make that argument. So yeah, I mean, you know, that's what speculative fiction is, that nature. And the research, you know, the original draft of Siegebreakers had footnotes, because it was like everything was researched, and everything was like, every incident in it was some kind of rewriting of something that actually happened, at least at the beginning, and some scaling up of things that actually happened, or reversing some tragedy, you know, some assassination or some other tragic thing that actually happened. So the you know, the point in this is, like, when you're speculating based on history, you can't anticipate things that are just out of nowhere, right? You can't anticipate the Houthis, the Ansarullah, just showing up and blockading, suddenly deciding that they're gonna do a humanitarian intervention out of nowhere. You can't anticipate that Iran is going to have put the finishing touches on its missile program in 2024 and get possibly, you know, hypersonic or ballistic missiles past Israel's missile shield. Okay. There's another thing that just reminded me of another thing that Abu Obeida said that I actually will end on. He, you know, another major theme of all of the resistance spokespeople, whether it's Hassan Nasrallah or Abu Obeida, is the kind of artificial, they don't, you know how they don't call Israel, they call it the Zionist entity, they call it the artificial entity or whatever. And Abu Obeida said, you know, anytime that Israel faces a challenge, how could we not think of it as an artificial entity? Because every time Israel faces any sort of challenge, they go scrambling to ask for help from the US and elsewhere. So he was referring specifically to the 7-country air defense effort on April 14th, where after all of this investment to shield Israel, in the end, you know, US, France, Britain, Jordan, maybe Saudi, maybe some other countries all scrambled their jets and got into the air to try to protect Israel from Iran's missiles. So that was like one of the themes of Abu Obeida's speech, and he sort of ended his speech with that note on Iran. I guess that's why that got me thinking of how what I anticipated and what I missed when I wrote that speculation about how the next war was going to go. All right, I will stop there. This will be a short one, and don't forget, tomorrow at noon Eastern time is the Electronic Intifada live stream, and so hang in there until then, and like and subscribe. I know there was problems with the comments. YouTube kept turning my comments off. I hope they don't do that to me today, and I will see you in the next one.